You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Whoa. Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks One-on-One with Keith Engle. Welcome, everybody watching this morning on our Facebook feed, our YouTube feed. We're live this morning on Roku, the National Streaming Sports Roku channel. You can also catch us in a bunch of groups. The groups are just beyond helpful. Some of them I'd like to mention: the Bottom Line Sports with Flo and the gang, the Sports Authority. John Gonzalez runs one of the best groups out there. And the golf bud, sports of all sorts. Ken Krause runs. So just a couple of the groups that help us out. Plus, there's a ton of when we have interviews like we have today with our guest Sidney Moncrief, who I'll bring in just a second. We share it to the Milwaukee Bucks groups, the NBA groups, and they're all very, very excited to see the content. We're happy to do that. We're going to have a new sponsor on National Streaming Sports, by the way. Our partners in this endeavor called Bet Us. I'm not going to play the video today, but we'll have a short video that will play during the shows, and you want to check it out. Go to the Northeast Streaming Sports website. I think it's nessp.com. I'll be posting these as we go forward. I just got this information last night, so we'll start pushing that a little bit. And we want to say a quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Ralph does some great stuff there, including the Sports Corner with Smoke and Jim Frazier every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And thumbs up, DDH. Good for you. And welcome all of you with us. And a quick shout out to last week's guest, Larry Sorensen, former Major League Baseball pitcher with the Brewers, the Cardinals, the A's, a bunch of teams. Currently the Wake Forest color analyst for baseball and football. We're going to have Larry on the College Football Huddle Wednesday night to talk a little bit about the upcoming college football season, which will start Saturday in Ireland. Ireland. And I guess today, as I said, Sidney Moncrief, former All-American at Arkansas, great team when he was there. I mean, the record was, we'll talk to Sidney. I can't think there's going to be too many teams that had better records in the 4 years he was there, playing for the much underrated, in my mind, Eddie Sutton. Also played in the NBA with great esteem with the Milwaukee Bucks, five-time All-Star, Hall of Famer, Defensive Player of the Year a number of times, All-Pro. They go on. And I will talk to him about that and the fact that when Sidney came out, there was some great debate with the Lakers whether they should take Sidney or Magic Johnson, which I think is an interesting topic, which we'll get into as well. But with no further ado, let me bring in Mr. Sidney Moncrief. Hello, Sidney.
Hey, Keith. How are you doing this morning?
I am doing fabulous. I'm so happy to have you with us today, and I know our fans will be. We get some viewers. We'll get some comments, guys, and as we get comments, if they're pertinent to what we're talking about at the time, we'll get to them, and then at the end, I'll ask Sidney to bear with me as we go through some of them. So we'll get to all of them at some point. And then, guys, if you watch this later on, feel free to comment, and I can certainly reach out. And if there's a question, I'll be happy to reach out to Sidney and get the answer. How's that?
Keith, I had a question for you.
Sure.
You said a word that I was talking about last night, a word you don't hear a lot, and that's All-American, college All-American.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up to see if they still have college All-American teams. It was such a big to-do years ago, back in the
huge
60s and 70s and 80s. But has it been de-emphasized, disappeared, guys going out earlier? I don't know. Something's happening to that where it doesn't get the notoriety that it probably should get.
That is an excellent point, because obviously they do still have them. And when I was growing up, again, I'm a couple years behind you, but I grew up watching college basketball in the early 70s through 80s. You knew who the All-Americans were every year. Always knew. I couldn't tell you who the All-Americans were last year.
I looked it up. I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
Right. It's a lost art.
Well, it's funny. I want to start here, but since we're on this topic, I'll stay on it. I mean, do you think it's because I think it's got a lot to do because of the one and done? So I don't know the players. In your day, I was a Marquette fan when I was growing up. I loved Al McGuire, but you knew all the players. Lloyd Walton, who I know you played with the Bucks for a while, I've had on the show, was one of my favorite players when I was a kid. But you knew who they were because they were there for 4 years, right?
Yes.
Or at least 3.
Yes.
They weren't playing as a freshman. And today they're one and done, a lot of them. That plays into it, don't you think?
I really think that plays into it. The fact that they don't stay as long, in addition to each conference does a better job, especially the power conferences, of promoting their conference. And I think the All-American status is not looked upon like it was obviously decades ago.
Yeah. It's the whole world, again, whether we're talking about college or professional, and we'll get into that a little bit. The landscape's changed so much that it's just a different experience being a fan, and I'm sure a player today. And we'll get into that for sure. I want to talk about your early. So you grew up in Arkansas. Unlike a lot of guys, I couldn't find a lot of information about your high school years. Was basketball your sport? I mean,
So it's funny. I was doing a keynote, and we got on the conversation. We got into a discussion.
Yeah.
About kind of what you're saying is, I watched NBA basketball when I was in high school, and someone alluded to, well, did you know you were going to be an NBA player?
Yeah.
No, I was from Arkansas. How would I know that? Pretty much you saw games on TV.
Right.
And the NBA was about as far from you as Mars, pretty much, as far as making a team. And that was partly because of we didn't have social media then.
Yeah.
We didn't have 5-star athletes and 4-star athletes. You had basketball players. We had a very good basketball team. We didn't win the championship. We run up in the state championship, played Central High School. But my high school days were very successful and good numbers, but nobody cared. One of those kind of deals. They cared at the school. They cared in the state, obviously. But as far as nationally, nobody really thought much about basketball. Arkansas has some really good super basketball players, high school players that they would go to other places, though. And Arkansas was more of a football state, which it still is.
Of course.
But I think those other programs, they were paying these elite high school basketball players. Back then, they had NIL money, but it was just called something else.
It's under the table then.
It was under the table type money. And so some of those players just, they brought notoriety to the state, more recruiters to the state. But the state basketball, quote, as a basketball was not looked upon very highly.
Was there, I mean, at what point did you feel like, did you feel at some point in your high school career that you could go on and play at least in NCAA Division I? Did you have aspirations for that, or was that a surprise?
I was just balling out, as we said. I was just playing basketball and having fun and just getting better. We talk a lot about, when I do my keynotes, we talk a lot about just getting better every day. And that's how I approached the game of basketball. I didn't really have goals thinking I would play in college or the NBA. I would say maybe my junior year was when I realized, everybody got letters.
Yeah.
Parents don't get so excited about letters, but how many people get scholarship offers? But probably my junior year, a little bit of buzz about coaches wanted me to play for their college team.
Who are the? I mean, obviously Eddie Sutton was on your trail, but and we'll talk a lot about Eddie. One of the most underrated college coaches of all time in my mind, and I'm sure you have some great feelings of that way. How did you get on his radar, and who else? What were the other schools that you might have considered?
Keith, it was a hodgepodge. It was crazy. It was everywhere from LSU, Dale Brown. They recruited me, and back then they had this massive arenas, and I remember taking a visit to LSU. My best friend and I, we went down there and visited, had a great visit, and they had a gym. They had a practice gym inside their arena. That was impressive. I was like, wow. So my eyes were like this wide open. And I liked LSU. I went to a football game and got a chance to experience a football game there. But the most memorable visit was University of Minnesota. Musselman was the coach, and I was recruited. Michael Thompson was up there as one of their players. I went in September around birthday time, and Minneapolis, nice city, and we were at a football game. Minnesota was playing someone, I forgot. I think Tony Dungy played for that team. And I was watching them play, and all of a sudden it started snowing in September. I'm like, oh, hell no, I won't be going here, because I'm an Arkansas guy. And, I like good weather. But we went to a great steakhouse. And so Minnesota recruited me, LSU, Oklahoma State, Arkansas.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had a really good group of, and the word was out that I was not going anywhere but the University of Arkansas. And it did limit. Someone told me later, well, nobody was coming to Arkansas to recruit you, Sidney. A lot of teams wanted to recruit you, but the word was out that you were going to University of Arkansas. So they didn't want to waste their time nor money traveling to Arkansas to recruit you.
That's interesting. Before I move on, that's an interesting cyclical thing that Bill Musselman recruited you to Minnesota, and his son ends up coaching your alma mater.
Yeah, small world.
Right?
It sure was. But they had, back then, you could have unlimited number of recruits. If I recall, I could be exaggerating, but they must have 14 guys on that visit, which was a lot I thought.
Yeah.
They were just picking and choosing. You could actually play, or we did play a little bit of games, and you got to play against guys that were from other states. And you got to gauge how good you really were, because before that, you only play guys within the state. Now you go to LSU or you go to Minnesota, and you're balling against guys from Detroit and Chicago and all these other places. And it gave me a gauge that, you're not bad. You're not a bad little player. I held up pretty well.
Yeah. In Arkansas, before Eddie Sutton got there, I don't know that Arkansas had this rich basketball history before Eddie Sutton. I thought Eddie Sutton did a tremendous, with some great players and great recruiting, bringing you and Marvin Delf and Ron Brewer together and other guys, I'm sure. Tell us about Coach Sutton and your interactions, I guess, maybe during the recruiting period and even your early time with him.
Yeah, the Arkansas's basketball history was not horrible, though, because I would watch the Lanny Van Eman show on Sundays occasionally, and they would highlight. He was a head basketball coach. He would highlight those teams. I listened to them. Keith, don't laugh. Don't laugh. I would listen to them on the radio play sometimes, because the very few people play on TV.
Yeah, I get that.
Yes, and so they had Martin Terry and Dean Tolson. They had some serious basketball players up there. They just didn't have the continuity in their players. And Coach Sutton, I'll never forget, I was Coach Charles Ripley was a mentor of mine, coached me as a sophomore in high school. He later went to Parkview and became a competitor. But I remember I was in the gym on Sunday afternoon working out. He was the assistant coach, and he would open the gyms. I'm working out, and he would always have a TV in the gym on Sundays watching football. Or he's a big sports guy. And here comes this guy on TV. He had just hired Coach Sutton, and he had this different kind of hair and a leisure suit, and he was really sharp. He was talking about his vision for the university. And at that time, Marvin Delf, my teammate, a good friend of mine, Ron Brewer, they were two of the best high school players in Arkansas. And Marvin had committed. Ron had committed, but he had to go to a JUCO for 1 year. So I sat there and I watched and listened to him, his passion, his sincerity, and the fact that Marvin and Ron, they were going to play there. And it was somewhat of a no-brainer for me to say, hey, this is where I need to play basketball.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, that team, I was looking at the records, and I knew this was a good team, right? 19-9 in your freshman year, but 26-2, 32-4, 25-5. There couldn't have been a lot of teams in the country over that, at least that 3-year period, that were playing much better basketball than Arkansas.
Yeah, over a 4-year period, I think I won 120. You can add that up. Won quite a few games. Did not lose very many. And the Southwest Conference was a good conference. It wasn't a great conference, but it was a very competitive conference. And then we were playing Kansas and Memphis State. We were playing good non-conference competition.
Yeah. So
it wasn't like it was all just what we call easy games. It was some very competitive games. So we had this chemistry, and Eddie Sutton, Coach Pat Foster, Gene Cady, they were able to get us playing at this high level. And the fact that they took our skill sets and they took advantage of those skills that we had. And we were all winners. Marvin won the state championship. Ron won the state championship. I didn't, but we were runner-up. So we had three guys that could win and knew and wanted to win. And that made all the difference in the world. Coach Sutton, the discipline that we were taught, the defensive philosophies we were taught, being responsible, being a good teammate, all the soft things about basketball we were taught, made a huge difference.
What obviously it was what year was it? You got to the
78, we get to the Final Four.
Season, right. Was that the best team of that, or was one of the other teams that lost earlier in the tournament better than that team?
That was the best team.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost to Wake Forest the year before.
Yeah.
And there were less teams in the tournament, I think. And I felt that team was good, but we were not seasoned. We were too young. But by the time we got to 78, Ron was a senior, Marvin was a senior, I was a junior, Jimmy Council was a senior, Steve Shaw was a junior. We had guys that had played together for 3 years, at least 3 years. And that was no doubt our best team.
I remember a great game. You had some great, you beat UCLA in that run, who was still, a national power at that point. I remember, and I think it was the regional semifinal. I was a senior in high school then, and we were on a varsity club trip. And I remember watching that Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, wow. Yes.
That was a great college basketball game.
That was good.
What was the best game? What was the game that you remember the most? It could be a win or a loss, I suppose. What was the most memorable game for you in college?
Two games. In college, I tell people you can remember college when you play 11 years in the NBA. As you know, Keith, the games kind of run together. Yeah. And people can ask you, what game do you remember? You're like, I don't, but college, two. One was the University of Houston versus Arkansas. Otis Birdsong was on that team. And they were coming into the Southwest Conference, this huge powerhouse. Their first conference game was against Arkansas. People didn't really know us. That game was on TV. People didn't know much about Arkansas. Of course, people knew about Houston because of Evan Hayes and career. Sure. That the history there was rich in basketball.
Right.
But they come to Barnhill, and we're locked in. I'm saying we were always intense and locked in. We really locked in. Like we're gonna show. We beat them 90-something to 40-something. It was something, and I don't know the score. We beat them so bad. We were so dominant in that ball game. And that was our coming out party, as people say. That was the game that so put us on the map where people said, wow, these guys can play basketball pretty well.
Yeah.
That was a very important game in the history of the university. The second is UCLA, the game you alluded to at Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the pit. And they were still a good team. They had David Greenwood. They had Keegan Vandeweghe. They had Burrow Hamilton. They have some really good players. So it was still a good team. It was still UCLA. And they're like, as you know, that's the king of the hill right there.
Right.
Playing UCLA. And we beat them. We were beating them pretty badly. It ended up being a close game. And that game, I went up for a dunk. David Greenwood blocks the dunk. I hit the ground. And then we played Cal Fulton a day later. In today's world, I wouldn't have played the entire tournament. I would have been out for 2 years in today's world.
Yeah.
But I played the Cal Fulton game. I didn't realize I probably played with a concussion and some serious injuries, but I didn't know that. I was just playing. But looking back upon it, I wasn't my best self. And then we played Kentucky, and I wasn't my best self because that was a quick turnaround. But I thought that game, that particular incident, hurt our chances because I wasn't 100% like I should have been or could have been.
You feel like Kentucky went on to win the national championship that year. Do you feel like if you'd been healthy, this team could have reached
I felt like had I been healthy and had I not gotten into foul trouble, we had a good chance of beating Kentucky. Back then, it was Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Arkansas, and they were all big teams.
Notre Dame, wasn't it Notre Dame?
That was Notre Dame. Notre Dame had
Notre Dame was
they had 4 or 5 guys that went to the NBA.
Yeah,
and so it was like everywhere you turn, it was going to be a difficult game. But Kentucky was definitely they knew how to play the game, and they were just more physically. They overpowered us, and we could not utilize our quickness because we got in foul trouble early. That hurt our team quite a bit.
You obviously became, through the years, your success at Arkansas and then your success in the NBA maybe helped you become more the face of that team. But you had some great players, as you mentioned, Marvin Delph and Ron Brewer specifically. You're one of, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 2 players that had their number retired, you and Corliss Williamson.
Yes, correct.
You feel like the rest of that team, is specifically the 2 guys I mentioned, have gotten their due from Arkansas over the years?
No, you never. It's always going to be somebody that sticks out. It doesn't mean that they should, like they do.
Yeah.
And some people will be left out. And I think Ron and Marvin, without those guys, we would have never achieved what we achieved. They were both more talented than I was.
Really?
Easily more talented than I was. I'm not just saying that. And they could just flat out play the game of basketball. And it helped me raise my game every day. If you're practicing going against that every day, you can't help but get better as a basketball player.
What do you think? And Ron Brewer, I know, had a decent NBA career, if I remember. He might have had injuries that held him back, but I don't remember Marvin Delph really making it on the next level to any great degree. What might have held them back where you ultimately more than succeeded?
Yeah. Well, Marvin chose Fellowship of Christian Athlete. He was very, his faith was very strong, and he chose not to even attempt to play in the NBA.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and he played for FCA. I'm not FCA. He played for AI, Athletes in Action, right? AI. He played for them for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. Yeah. Traveled the world and gave his testimony. And that's what he wanted to do. He wasn't really focused on the NBA. He could have played in the NBA, but he chose not to. Ron played about 9 to 10 years.
Yeah.
He had a steady NBA career. He moved around a lot, but he was very a good NBA player.
He had some injury issues, I think, as well, didn't he? I know
he had a few. He had a few, and then he played under George Gervin. And that was a kind of great story to where Gervin goes out and Ron scores 40 and 40 or something. He could really shoot and score the basketball. So he did have a good NBA career. The difference was I just kept getting better. I mean, I don't know how to explain it more than that. I was pretty locked in. I'm probably a little more intense because I had to be. I wasn't as talented as Ron and Marvin, which meant I had to play harder, lock in more, and just play more aggressive. I was an aggressive kid, not a bully, but I was an aggressive kid growing up, and that transferred very well and making me I think a little better basketball player.
There was a guy that you played against your last year in the tournament. You lost to Indiana. I think you lost to Indiana. Did you lose to Indiana State?
We did.
And Larry Bird, obviously, in Magic that season was the big story. What was it like playing against Larry Bird? And did you have did you know then that he was going to become the great player that he became?
Well, I did, and here's why. The summer before that year, we played together for about 6 weeks. The World University Games that nobody really cares about, we were on that team. We practiced 2 weeks in Louisville, Kentucky, under Denny Crum. First time I had played against Larry, I had heard about him. I knew then he was going to be great. The 2 weeks in Kentucky and Louisville said, oh, yeah, this guy, he can play. And then we played, like I said, 4 weeks together after that overseas. So I was familiar with Larry and had a lot of respect for him as a player. And so, yeah.
You mentioned international play. the only Olympics you would have had a chance to play in because the pros weren't playing when you got there until 92. We know that. 76 Olympics, you would have been just off your freshman year, I'm guessing. Did you have any aspirations, or was there any thought of you being on that team at all or trying out?
Oh, no, the Olympics.
No. A good team.
Yeah, it was a good team also. And then college, the players from college were from the bigger schools, quote, sometimes.
Yeah.
Arkansas was not to that point in 76, and nor was I good enough.
Yeah.
In 76 to play on the Olympic team.
Is this? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was definitely clear line back then. It was a clear line between a pro player and a college player.
Yeah.
But it's not so clear. It's clear now.
Just as we're just coming off the Olympics, I thought to ask that question. I mean, do you think it's something, because as you got better in college, there wasn't going to be an Olympics, obviously, while you were still in school, and the pros were still, I guess they played maybe the year after you retired, maybe if I've got my math right, which my math is fuzzy sometimes. So I graduated from Perth. I always make this little comment, and some of the Perth teachers probably get mad at me, but I don't math as well as I probably ought to. I think you would have missed it by 1 year. I'm not sure if you would have been able to play at that time anyway, because of where you were at in your career, but is that something you would have liked to have experienced?
Keith, not really. No, it just never really appealed to me much.
Really?
It just seems like it was so far away.
Yeah.
The fact that when I probably could have played 76, I wasn't good enough to play.
Yeah.
So after that, you transition to the NBA, and you couldn't play
at that point, right?
At that point, and I'm always the type that I didn't really get into things I couldn't control. I didn't think about them too much. I never thought about the Olympics. It's so funny you would ask that. I never thought about like the World University Games. That was my Olympics, and I didn't realize the magnitude of that. I was just invited to try out and play, and I did because I like playing basketball. But beyond that, I would not have even known anything about the World University Games.
Interesting. I mean, back then there was several international competitions. I don't even know if they're there anymore. The World Games that you talked about, the Pan Am Games, I remember.
Oh yes, that's right. The Pan Am Games
was a big deal then, and I don't think they even play those anymore. Since like FIBA's taken over and the pros are in, they play in all these different international competitions, but it's a little bit different now. So tell me a little bit more about Eddie Sutton, your relationship with Eddie, and what he meant to your career, your life, whatever.
Well,
he had.
If you with someone 4 years, I always like to say this. I coached in college 1 year as a head coach, and I like college because you could impact kids.
Yeah.
I always like to say, if shame on you coaches, if you have a kid that plays for you 4 years and they leave the school the same as they did when they got there. Now it's a little different now because you have the limit on the amount of times you can practice and do certain things with players. But back then we had no limit. And Coach Sutton was the reason I was exposed to so much outside of basketball. Something as simple as going to a nice restaurant when you travel.
Yeah.
I didn't take it for granted because it was so far away, but once you get to college, you remember the meals, you remember the nice restaurants you would go to all the time, and how you would be taught how to etiquette, how to act or behave at the dinner table. You remember all the hard practices and how the coaches force you to lean up on your teammates to be better. Coach Sutton did something very simple and intentional when I was a junior, going to be a senior. I was a junior. Ron and Marvin, they were seniors. And we had a great year the year before. We lost. I forgot who we lost to, but that was a good team also. And then after practice, Coach Sutton said, Ron, Marvin, Sidney, I want to see you guys in my office. And I'm thinking to myself, you don't normally go to the coach's office to chew the fat. Back then, if a coach wants you in the office, you've done something wrong. And so we're like, what the heck? What did we do? So we kind of mosey up to his office, and he sat us down. He said these words. I'm not Keith. I'm not totally accurate how he said what he said.
Sure. Right.
But we didn't try to, we helped each other. We didn't have these massive egos to where we wanted me. Being from Arkansas, we didn't have that. And that helped us also, because it wasn't like, well, he scored this many points, I scored this many points, I'm not getting my shots. We were all about winning. But that meeting was a game changer in our lives as basketball players. And that's the type of coach he was. When he said something, he meant what he said, because he didn't really say those type things very much.
Do you feel like Coach Sutton, we're a lot of years now past his coaching career and his passing, sadly. Do you think he gets his due as good a basketball coach as he was? Do you think he gets his due?
No, he doesn't. I think anybody that played for Coach Sutton, yes, he does. Anyone that's been around him, yes, he does. But just for basketball people in general, and you have so many tremendous coaches with resumes, and you can't glorify everybody, right? That's just about somebody will be left out. I said that earlier with Ron Marvin and myself.
Yeah.
I think Coach Sutton fit in that category, because you could say Bobby Knight or Dean Smith. You can just kind of name some coaches, John Wooden. You can name these coaches, but you can't name 10. You can only probably name consistently 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Everybody will know 4 or 5. So some coaches will be outside that little bubble, and he was one of those coaches. But if you watch him coach, if you watch him interact with players, if you saw how this kid might have been when they got there, just had Darrell Walker from Chicago.
Yeah.
Tough kid. Darrell was totally out of control when he got to Arkansas. He was only half out of control when he left, but he helped turn Darrell into this very valuable player and very valuable person. He's done that over and over again between Patsy Sutton, his dear wife, who passed before he did. He's done that. And to me, coaching is more than about basketball. It's about, are you shaping these young men to go into this world and make a difference? And he did that.
I was always drawn. I was, again, I'm a Marquette fan, but I was drawn to his teams for whatever reason when he was at Oklahoma State and Arkansas. He had I'm sure the lack of a national championship does, again, he doesn't jump to some people's mind because of that. Do you think his situation and in Kentucky affects it as well? And was it a smart move for him to actually go to Kentucky at that point in time?
No, I don't personally.
Yeah.
I just think people look at it, but I don't think it skews how they think of him as a coach. You're more right when you said, in my mind, you always think who won the championship.
Yeah.
If you didn't win a championship, you're not considered a great coach. Yeah. Well, not sometimes, a lot of times you are a very good coach, but you have very good players. You have the best players, and the best players make you the best coach more than the best coach make them the best players. So I think that's part of it.
Well, great coaches get the most out of their players, right? They may not win it all, but they get the most out of what they get
the most out of their players, and they're still competitive. They still win games, and when they leave that school, they're good citizens.
Yeah,
they're not perfect, but they're good citizens.
I mean, you were close to the situation. You were gone, obviously, from Kentucky from Arkansas when he decided to go to Kentucky. I remember thinking at the time that it probably wasn't a good fit, and it wasn't maybe the best move for Coach Sutton at that time. Did he ever talk about that or have any feelings about that?
No, but I don't know if I heard this from Coach Sutton or from another coach. Might have heard from Coach Sutton, but I know I heard this from a coach. They said 11 years is about the length of time a coach should be anywhere. 9 to 11 years.
Yeah.
9 to 11 years. After that, the honeymoon's probably well over, right? They're tired of you. You're kind of tired of them. They become super critical, and that's all coaches. And so I thought from that standpoint, the timing was right because he had been at Arkansas, I think, right at 9 years. I don't know the exact, maybe about 9 years, I think.
Sounds right.
Yeah, and that's about it. 9 years was about where most coaches feel you need to pack your bags and go somewhere else.
Certainly a different atmosphere, though. You're in a fishbowl in Kentucky where he built a really good program at Arkansas. Kentucky's a different animal altogether. And
Kentucky is different, but Arkansas is different. Here's why, Keith. In Kentucky, you have Louisville, very good basketball program.
Right.
As good as Kentucky in some ways, in some years.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, man, that's a serious program there. And then you have Kentucky. Of course, those are two big. And then you have some other colleges in Kentucky. I can't name them right now. That a little bit of notoriety, right, here and there. Good programs. Well, it's Kentucky and Louisville. In Arkansas, you just have Arkansas.
Yeah.
That's it. And all the focus from the entire state, not national, but the entire state goes right to that program.
Point.
That's a different kind of pressure.
Yeah, good point.
Than what you might have at Kentucky, because you still have Louisville and you still have some other schools. And the only thing about Kentucky is a basketball school. I know some coach, the football coach didn't do it, but it's a basketball school. Arkansas is a football school.
Yeah.
But once that monster gets fed like Arkansas did, and it gets bigger and bigger and better and better, then Arkansas did become a basketball school at that point because we had the better programs.
What I'm trying to get to your pro career. I got so much to talk about Arkansas. What was it like when you were playing? In the 70s. Hell, we still have racial issues today, but what was it like in the South for you guys playing at Arkansas in general? And what to tie this together a little bit? What did it mean to you when Nolan Richardson was named the coach at Arkansas?
Yeah, I wasn't as aware of the social things that were going on when you're a little high school kid.
Yeah.
And you don't have all these different opinions like you do with social media, all these different feeds that you might have, people talking, and you get more information and you're able to form an opinion about something. That was not the era that I played in. We just played basketball pretty much. And you get the news feed from the AP, UPI. I remember UPI, AP.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You get the local stations and what have you. And so I don't really see any incidents when I played in college, which is pretty amazing, that I could just look back and blatantly say, damn, that was racist. You know what I'm saying? I know there was subtle stuff that happens. I think when you're tied to a basketball team, we didn't have a lot of that I saw. Now in the NBA, that was a little different because now you're traveling maybe to LA, or I remember a friend Junior at Bridgman and Harvey Catchings, we would just go all these different places. So we're in Boston. We just wanted to go on Newberry Street or one of those streets. And we just want to look at Oriental rugs or something. And every door we knocked on, people would just say, you had to ring their doorbell. They were like,
Boston, yeah.
Yeah, they were like, no, you're not coming in here. You're not coming in here. Those type incidents when I played in the NBA, LA might go to Beverly Hills Mercedes store, and the people looking at, why are you in here? So you got more of that in the NBA, I think, because you were not with a team, you were normally with an individual or two.
Makes sense.
And so there were certainly more blatant discrimination in the NBA.
It still was a big deal when Nolan got the head coaching job, though, at Arkansas, right?
It was huge. It was huge. But I never looked up on it, and I should have. Like I said, I wasn't really aware as I should have been
Yeah.
that they're hiring a black coach. Now I would be very much aware now since I'm older and I understand the ramifications of all those different things. But I remember talking to Nolan after he took the job. He was treated so badly by some fans.
Yeah.
And he was extremely disappointed and despondent about all the things that people were saying about him. And it was just not good for some years. And he was able to turn it. Talking about having resilience. He was able to just keep going, turn it. His daughter had died and he was in a strange place and he just kept the grind and got it done.
Good man. Good
yes,
man.
he is. Great man.
I've read and certainly a great legacy for sure. Let's pivot here to the NBA. And it's funny you brought up LA in that conversation because as you were coming into the draft, the stories are that Jerry West, and you can probably speak to this, I'm assuming you had some conversations maybe or didn't, that Jerry West thought you were going to be a better pick than Magic Johnson at the time, and they were considered picking you with that number 1 pick. You went number 5 to Milwaukee. What are your recollections of that time?
Keith, I've never had a conversation with the Lakers. As a matter of fact, I never had a conversation with the Bucks for that matter. Never had a conversation with Detroit. It was just, I think what Jerry West thought was, Jerry West was a shooting guard. I was a shooting guard.
Yeah.
I don't think he thought I was a better player, but I think that he might have thought I might be a good fit at the shooting guard spot for the Lakers.
Gotcha.
Because Norm Nixon, was Norm there? I think Norm Nixon was there.
Norm Nixon was there before Magic got there, yeah.
Yeah. So Norm is a combo guard, but I don't think Jerry West, the brilliant basketball mind, at some point he knew Magic was special. And as you know, in doing draft, they have conversations about everybody.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Right. So it wasn't like a special conversation. It's just like, well, just in case, here's a person that we like. But I never had any conversation with the Lakers about playing in LA.
When draft day came and you went to Milwaukee, were you happy about where you were going initially? Didn't know anything about it.
I'm an Arkansas guy. It was all I knew it was cold.
You've been to Minnesota, so you've
been to Minnesota. Like I said, Minnesota's close to. I remember, and Keith, you're not old enough to remember encyclopedias, are you?
Yes, I am. I told you, I'm 64 years old. That's all I had. I didn't have a computer.
That's all we had, right? So I remember going to the encyclopedia that were outdated, opening it up under M, and doing my research on the city of Milwaukee. They had this black and white picture, and it was gloomy and dark. The picture, had the lake and factories and what have you. I remember reading about some of the industries and the people there, and it was very. So I didn't really. It was I had a choice between. I didn't have a choice. It could have been Detroit. It could have been Chicago. It could have been Milwaukee. It could have been New York. And it could have been LA. All I know is Magic was in LA. I had 4 places that were not in the Sun Belt. Like I'm a warm weather guy. But yeah, Milwaukee, that was pretty interesting. I didn't have much thought at all. I really did.
At that point in time, I can tell you as a Knicks fan, I would like to have seen you drafted by the Knicks. But that
the New York was right in there. I don't think they wanted big. Back then, it was good to be big.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wanted big centers.
That might have been around the time they got Bill Cartwright. I'm not sure.
They drafted Bill Cartwright.
Same draft as you?
Yeah, same draft. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sure did.
Sometimes my memory's still there. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'll bring up this question that Chris has because it's certainly relevant to where we are. So in your first season with the Bucks, you're obviously a youngster with that's a different question. That's not the one I wanted. I'll leave it up there. Pat Cummings was one of your teammates as a rookie. I wanted to get into some of your other teammates, but you still stay in touch with Pat?
Which one, Pat Cummings?
Pat Cummings is the one he's talking about.
Pat passed. He died.
He passed away?
He did. Well, he died at 50 or something.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. He passed, but Pat we came in the same year, and God, he was a great. We call him. That was a club called Park Avenue, right in Milwaukee.
He was a scrapper, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a scrapper. He would come to practice and games like he's always coughing because he was hanging out. He was hanging out and balling. One of those kind of guys. We call him Park Avenue. I call him Mr. Park Avenue, named after the nightclub. But he was a really just a great guy and a competitor. He was a scrapper.
I didn't know he passed. That's the one I wanted to put up. I clicked on the wrong comment here. Was in your rookie season, Coach Nelson had his hands in several. I think I don't know if he was a GM then, but I know he had a big role in this club, and he was a real good coach. Not that far removed from his playing career. What was your first meeting with him like, and your overall thoughts of Don Nelson?
Well, I don't remember the first meeting with Nelly. It's kind of weird, isn't it? I don't remember that. I do remember him in training camp because he was so intense.
Yeah.
And they worked us, John Killalay, and they worked us, Keith, they worked us so hard in training camp. And I thought I know Coach Sutton worked you like really extreme practices. Then I got to the NBA and it was extreme practices with Nelly. I just remember the attention to detail and his feel for the game. Those are things I remember about Nelly. He really had his hand on the pulse of what it was like to be a player, and he could look at a player's skill set and he could figure out how to put that player in a position to do well. And to me, coaching and leadership is all about putting your players, staff in a position to succeed. And he was a master at that. He was a very good coach. And I remember I was a good defender when I got to the NBA.
Yeah.
Now I was good because we practiced defense 3 hours per day at Arkansas, right? And I was a physical player. And I remember first practice, not maybe the first practice, but a practice. And we're doing this defensive drill. And Nelly gave me my first critical defensive tip that really helped me a lot. He just said, Sidney, you got to be more physical. You cannot play defense with these players against these players in the NBA with that much space. Get up in them. I was like, that's simple, right, Keith? Simple, but very important lesson. And so I learned that being physical as a guard was very important. It disrupt timing. You redirect players. Sometimes it can get in a player's head because no one likes contact. Sometimes people say a certain player doesn't like contact. A certain player doesn't like to be pressured. Guess what? Nobody likes contact and nobody likes to be pressured. So he gave me some really good tips, even as a rookie, that helped me to become a very good defensive player. What
was the biggest difference? I mean, you're playing basketball at the highest college level, still obviously great competition and players. What was a big difference transitioning to the NBA? I mean, more great players, I'm sure.
Speed.
Right?
It's like pro football. It's the speed of everything. In college, you could catch a basketball. You had maybe a millisecond to get your shot. You had a little bit of time. You can shoot the basketball. In the NBA, you catch somebody's right there. They're on you. They're in your space that quickly. And there was a speed. I had to guard Brian Winters every practice, junior bridgeman, but Brian was probably one of the best in setting guys up coming off that single double pick and roll. I'm not picking single double pin downs. And he would just torch my butt every practice because I didn't understand the concept of space.
Yeah.
And eliminating space. And when you're a defender, that's what it's all about, eliminating that space and making sure you reroute guys. So he gave me a good lesson in how to cover the pin downs, the best lesson.
Interesting. I mean, you came into a team that was pretty good already. A lot of really good players there. I know David Myers was still there. You mentioned Junior Bridgman.
Marcus Johnson, a
great player out of UCLA.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Bob Lanier, who had already had a great career by the time he got there. Maybe he was a bit on the downside. And I know Milwaukee seemed to always be looking for a center after they traded Jabbar for a couple of the guys we just mentioned, right? Those were really good teams. And we'll talk, I guess, over a period of years, right? You couldn't get past, it was either Philadelphia staying in your way or Boston staying in your way. And, you had chances in the conference finals, or it seemed like one of those guys would knock you out somewhere before you could get to the finals. What was the missing piece, or were those teams just?
They were just good.
Just better.
They were just better. Yeah. If you look at Boston's team, and Keith, I have a funeral to attend.
Yeah.
That came up later. So I have about 5 more minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, it didn't, so I have a funeral I need to get to.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it was it's something that came up after we had scheduled this, and we have to be there at 9:30 or something like that. I might have to pick someone up. It's kind of early, but okay. So those teams, look at Boston's line. They had 5 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Philadelphia had 4 and would have had 5 with Andrew Toney. Think about it. So you're talking about teams that were just stacked. I thought our best chance of winning the championship was when we were in the Western Conference. That's when I first came to the NBA. Milwaukee, we were in the West.
Yeah.
And we played that Seattle team that eventually won the championship. I think it was 80 or 81, one of the two. And I thought that was we had a shot. Had we beaten Seattle, which was a great team, we had a shot. But those other teams between Boston and Philly, they were just too deep with talent.
You had a future teammate that was on that Seattle team. Jack Sikma was on that team.
Yes, he was on that team. Right? Yeah, and Jack was. It was nothing like playing in the Kingdome. And I do remember I was playing Seattle in the Kingdome, not in the playoffs. I don't know, it was 30,000 plus people. They would have these massive crowds to watch their team play years ago.
Who was the toughest guy for you to defend in the NBA in your time?
Well, I had to defend Michael. That's kind of like.
I guess that makes it easy.
Yeah, and then Andrew Toney was a tough person to guard. He had some really good offensive players, and that was tough. You can't guard a good defensive player can't guard a good offensive player. You just can't do it. I spent all your time yelling, "Help! Help!"
Yeah,
help me.
We talked about some of the great players again. Marcus Johnson, Bob Lanier, Bob Dandridge came back to Milwaukee. If I remember that right.
Yes, Bobby D sure did.
He'd gone away to Washington. Who was your best teammate? Maybe not the best player. Who was the best teammate for you to play with in the NBA and the Bucks?
I had a great relationship off the court with JB and Harvey Catchings, but you know what? It's so funny you would ask me that. On the court, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
Because the way I played, I was just out there doing what I should do. Just playing basketball and trying to play the game the right way. When you do that, at least for me, I didn't have any like favorite guys to play with.
Yeah.
People that got me the ball in my spot all the time. I just went out there and played and let things happen.
Was there a guy you would have liked to have played with?
No.
Nobody. Teammates were all. Those are fun teams. I wish those teams got over the top. I remember watching those games in the playoffs and wishing that team could get over the top because it was a fun team to watch.
It was fun. I can't think of a place I would rather play than Milwaukee.
That's awesome.
Sometimes people say, I wish I would have played here and this would have happened. No, I was in the right place at the right time. I have no desire to have done anything else but to play for the Bucks.
Before we got to let you go, there's a couple of comments here I didn't get to. Danny Fuller, he's out in LA. He says, Hall West High School under 500 students has been irrelevant since your graduation. Did you we talked about whether you wanted to go to Arkansas or not. He wished you had come to UCLA. He's
well, they had paid out all their money to Marcus Johnson, all those guys. That's NIL before NIL.
Yeah, we mentioned that. We all know that was going on. He says Arkansas is more known for track and baseball. I know they got a really good baseball team this way, but look at the basketball team's been really good under Eric Musselman. They struggled a little last year, but
their track teams are legendary. He's so right. They have been not only cross country but indoor track, outdoor. They're very good in those areas.
The NBA is quite different in terms of how the game is played today. Did you notice any changes in the game over the time you were playing?
I really didn't notice a lot of changes. Of course, the three-point shot came in, but it was not utilized like it is now. It was sort of like it was there, but nobody paid much attention to it. At some point when I was coaching in the NBA and started coach, that's when they started to try to improve the movement of players to get the scoring up. And so, yes, we saw that, a big difference. And in the way guys process information, it's a little different. We used to have a scouting report that was pretty simple, but it was a good scouting report. And now when you put together a scouting report as a coach, it's just about a dissertation. And, and with analytics, it's gotten even more information. So I think it's definitely information overload, and it takes away sometimes from the instinctiveness of the players, and they just can't retain a lot of information. It's like you didn't even do a scouting report because they don't execute it very well.
Analysis, paralysis by analysis in some cases, I think.
Yes.
In all sports today. We talked about Bob Lanier. Did somebody take you under their wing as a rookie?
If you ask my teammates, I said I was not a rookie. I was very adamant because they like to try to haze rookies, and they like to take the balls and take my luggage, and I was not into that. Right? They still talk about that today. He did not claim being a rookie, but Junior and Harvey, we spent a lot of time together. That was very good to have veterans to spend time off the court with. So that was a good thing. And so Bob Lanier, Bob was just, wow, you talk about just a really smart, instinctive, good teammate. He was the ultimate teammate.
Real quick, I got a couple more. I know you got to go. Craziest teammates. Who stands out as somebody who just was like,
I don't know, because I didn't pay much attention to them, but they were too crazy. We all had a crazy bug in us somewhere.
You mentioned coaching in the NBA. Did you have aspirations to be a head coach? Would that have been something you wanted to do and it just didn't work out? Or?
Well, yeah, I did. I did at one point. But all good things happen for a reason. I wasn't ready. It's so funny. The time that you feel most ready to be a great NBA head coach, it's like now, but it's too late. You learn so much about the game and people, and it's all about people, as we know. And so now the things is kind of it's too late now. Okay, I got time for one more because I need.
There you go. I always end up with Chris because he's always got a couple. Hey,
Chris.
What's your food? What's the best food to eat in your area? What are you reading, and what kind of music you listen to?
Okay, the best food. I'm a foodie in general. I just like good food. I like good steaks, barbecue, seafood, Italian. I love Italian food. Love Italian food.
There you go.
So I'm always looking for the best meal, and that goes back when I played in the NBA. It's not anything new. I would always look for the best restaurant in the area. I read so much with my company. I've written 12 books, working on 13. And I read a lot of information. I don't read books. I write books. So I don't read them much. And so that's kind of when my next book I'm working on now. It's going to be a book with my grandkids. It's a children's book. And it's going to be called The Grit Kids. Teaches Grandpa Sid the Biz.
Oh, that's cool.
We're working on that now. And that's going to be released hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months. And I spend my time with my company and travel and just
tell us about the company real quick. What's the name of the company? And
go to SidneyMoncrief.com. The company is called Moncrief One Team. Our nonprofit is called Moncrief Game Changer. We are a professional development company. A people development company. I'm sorry. We do team enhancement, leadership, soft skills. We do emotional intelligence training. We do entrepreneurship and all those fun things.
If there's anything I can share to my site, we get tons of followers, and I'll be glad to post it. If you want to send it over to me via email, whatever, I'll post anything you want. Books,
thank you.
We'll put it all for you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Keith. Thank you.
I appreciate your time, Sidney, and I so much to get into with you, but you were wonderful today, and I appreciate you spending time.
Quick story. I'm sitting there. I'm in the gym because I know I have this funeral to attend, and so I'm in the gym. I'm working. I'm in the sauna, really. And then the timer goes off. Said in 30 minutes you have a interview, and so I just about missed it. The interview. Well, technology is a beautiful thing.
I gotta tell you, you showed up much earlier than a lot of guests lately have shown up like 20 or 30 minutes into the show. So you're way ahead of them.
No, I got right out of there. So I appreciate you.
You have a great weekend. Thanks, Sidney.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. The great Sidney Moncrief, former Razorback. Let me think about it from here. The great Razorback and Milwaukee Buck. I would have liked to have got into a lot more. I know I saw JB put up a question here. We're going to get ready to hang out here. We're getting ready to jump off here in a second. JB, welcome to the show this morning. Grew up playing hoops in the 80s with all the talent that decade. Sidney was always part of that discussion. One of my faves in it with a complete game. I certainly agree 100%. That's why I was so happy to get Sidney on. Never played for any of my favorite teams, but I liked watching those Bucks teams play in the playoffs. The Knicks were so bad in those days. They weren't getting, going anywhere. So as we watched the playoffs progress, I would always be rooting for those Bucks teams. Loved the way Coach Nelson coached. I loved the way Sidney played. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but injuries, I want to talk about how injuries impacted his career. He played with a bad knee most of his career, caused his retirement. He did retire for a year and then come back with the Hawks for a year. He sat out a year and came back with the Hawks, but then retired. But we got into a lot of the stuff we wanted to talk about. Little rush at the end. I spent a lot of time. And I'll be honest with you. I spent more time on the college side because I'm a big college basketball fan, and I wanted to know about that time in his life and Coach Sutton and Marvin Delth. And I remember that Arkansas team so well. I remember being in a hotel room in Boston. Rick, you'll probably remember some of the varsity club trips Perth had were legendary. Danny Krzyzewski was the fam at that time, and we had a lot of fun. And I believe it was my senior year that, even after the senior year, the year after my senior year, we followed the varsity club to Boston as well, I think. But I remember watching that Cal State Fullerton, Arkansas regional final in a hotel room in Boston, and it was a great game, and that was a great team. And Coach Sutton, I think, is somebody who does not get his due. And I think Sidney Moncrief, and I didn't really get a chance to express this to Sidney, I don't think Sidney gets the due that he should get as an NBA player. People are so wrapped up in numbers, and if you look at Sidney's numbers, while they're very good, they don't jump out at you. And that's why you can't look at numbers in any specific sport and just say, wow, right? That's why I don't get wrapped up. Numbers aren't fun, right? LeBron breaking scoring record, Jabbar, points and rebounds and assists from Magic and crazy numbers. Sidney did it all and played great defense, and that gets lost. And again, I would like to have asked Sidney how he would have fared in today's NBA. But maybe we'll get Sidney back on. Maybe when his book is out, we can just focus on the NBA a little bit more. So I hope you guys had fun today. I did, as always. I'm going to play the commercial for you real quick before we sign out. This is our newest sponsor. Remember, guys, when we have these types of commercials, it's a commercial enterprise, and we'll talk more about it. But always bet with your head. Be smart. Bet with your head, not over it. And if you have any problem.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
Bet responsibly, guys, and if there's any issue, we'll probably add a disclaimer. So, well, we're gonna have it only at the beginning and the end, because we do have a partnership with National Streaming Sports, and I've made a commitment to do this. It's not going to be long. It's not going to be if Michael Vick is in it, I can't help that. But I use a competitor of. Let me put this back up here. We're gonna sign off here in a minute, but just to I forgot what I was gonna say now. Oh, I use a competitor of Bet Us, which I won't mention here since we're pushing them, and I'll check them out. If you like to make a wager like I do, these sites are good to do. But again, stay within your means, guys. It's easy to not do so. I like to bet futures. Talked about it on the college football show. Going to have a futures bet on Notre Dame to win it all. So anyway, they won't be intrusive, Danny. I promise you. Danny had a very. I think maybe I made a funny comment with Danny. We were having a very spirited conversation on the Mac and Jack show this morning about the Michael Penix situation. I think that was it, wasn't it, Danny? I don't remember now. I commented that Danny was we couldn't really talk about what he had put up there. I would say this to Bet US: they probably should use a different spokesperson. I may ask Mac to change that. I may actually do my own spot for that commercial at some point, because I'm not a big fan of that. So yeah, it was about Penix, right? But Danny, and it was I did mean it as a compliment in a way, backhanded as it was. Danny's up at 5:30 in the morning for these shows. At 5 o'clock in the morning if he tunes into the Saturday big football show before the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. So he's very, very dedicated. I'll have my translator place my bets. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. It was before your coffee. Well, yeah, I mean, you made a salient point. I mean, there's probably no right or wrong in that topic we were talking about. I guess I'll continue this conversation for just a minute. And I think I'll bring it up more again maybe Sunday as we're talking more NFL. Oh, actually, you know what I want to do? I got to push this on. Where am I going here? I should go to. I want to get the Pick'em sites up. We got college Pick'em, and we've got what else we have, Rick? We have a professional, the NFL Pick'em, all straight picks. We'll have some fun on TGI Sports Talk, and we'll cover the winners and losers, where everybody stands on Wednesdays in the college football huddle, and of course on Sundays for the NFL. What was my point I was trying to make? Oh, the point about Michael Penix. There's probably no right or wrong here. It's probably all just, to me, if you're all in, you got a quarterback. If you get hurt, you're not going to win anyway. So let me see if I can put these. How do I TGI Sports Talk? Do I want to invite? Here we go. So here's one for college. We'll put this in the comments. And we'll do it. We'll try to have this ready a little bit sooner. See that, and the other thing is it comes up like 7 times, and then we'll do the one for the pros, which is, boy, why don't they give them all to me in the same place? I hate this. I got to go to a different place to find the pros. This is going to cause me great problems when I'm making my picks. There it is, right there. Invite friends, copy link, put it in here, and there you go. Danny, Chris, join us, make some picks, have some fun. It's all for bragging rights. Any more comments I missed here? I hope that works. Skip the content. What is this? Skip the content, Mac and John. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it was listening to me or what. What was this? That's too funny, right? That was a fine show. See you this afternoon. Good to have you with us, Chris. Hope you and Danny will get in the pool, and anybody else who watches us. We'll be on with a Major League Baseball update at 3 p.m. Lots to talk about. Obviously, races tightening up, some managerial movement. So lots to talk about, and who knows what discussion we'll have there. Can't just look at numbers. A lot of people that do. So anyway, what do you got here? I just missed this. Rick Sherlock, LOL. That only works for Ohtani. Oh, I didn't get it. Hello. Duh. Story's gone by me already, I guess. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in this morning. We'll see you at 3 o'clock with the Major League Baseball update. Thanks to Sidney Moncrief. We'll see you at 3. And we'll see you next week on this show with Ernie DiGregorio, former Providence and Buffalo Braves standout.
You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.